Greetings, Richard Fulmer here. Welcome to another episode of Richard's Rock Rambles. So today we're going to take another look at a classic rock band, and I have quite a history with this band. This is actually the first band that I ever really got into at the tender age of I think about 13 or 14. And what attracted me to this band, as with so many other classic rock bands and any album really, was the cover of the album. And it was actually the album Phoenix that I saw in a store, and I thought the cover looked amazing. I knew nothing about the band at the time, obviously. Grabbed the album, took it home, loved it, and that was it. I was hooked. And I think every subsequent birthday, asked the parents, please get me this Grand Funk or that Grand Funk. So that's the band I'm talking about, Grand Funk Railroad, later to become just Grand Funk. Loathed by the critics, loved by the people, which is what matters. I think besides Grand Funk, probably Uriah Heep was the other band that had just as much criticism and loathing from the critics. But what do critics know? You know, they often get it wrong. And at the end of the day, it's what appeals to the masses, and the people were buying the albums, were going to the concerts in their thousands. I mean, this is a band that sold out Shea Stadium in the States quicker than the Beatles, and that took some doing back in the day. So they were around from around 69, broke up in 76, reformed in the early 80s, did a couple of albums. They did a later live album again, and that was it for that particular lineup. They are still going today, but without one of the founder members. They're still touring. They haven't released an album since the 80s, so who knows if that's ever going to happen again, which is a bit of a shame. But they still tour. They were known as the People's Band, very much down with the folks, you know, working man. They came from Flint, Michigan, in the States, which is kind of a working man's area in America. Lots of industry there, and you know, they had that sort of thing going for them. Their manager in the early days was a guy by the name of Terry Knight, who later on they had a massive fallout with as regards money, no surprise. And I love this band just for the rawness in the early days when they started out as a power trio, rock power trio. They then became a little bit more commercial later on. Still had great success. The early part of their career is what really appealed to me. So I've got 13 studio albums here to go through that I'm going to rank. Please guys, if you want to rank these, just down below, show me your rankings. It'll be great to see. Some of them haven't aged that well. Some have stood the test of time. So without further ado, let's jump into Grand Funk. The first album I'm going to look at is one called What's Funk by Grand Funk. That terrible album cover, I don't know what they were thinking there. Some girl with electric jumper leads, who knows. This was after they had reformed in 81. This one came out in 83. And to be honest, there's nothing memorable on here. It's really forgettable. I think they were kind of clutching at straws here. The lineup at this stage was Mark Farner, the original guitarist, vocalist, keyboardist, and sometime harmonica player. Don Brewer on drums, and a guy called Dennis Bellinger on bass. I think he was a friend of theirs from the early days. He appeared on the first reunion album. The tracks on here, rock and roll, American style, it's okay, sort of mid-tempo rocker, nothing fantastic. Nowhere to Run, which is a cover, which is not too bad. Innocent, Still Waiting, Borderline, El Salvador, which is a very good track. It's a Man's World, another cover. You can see they were running out of ideas. I'm So True, Don't Lie to Me, and Life in Outer Space. Really, very rarely do I reach for this when I want to listen to Grand Funk. I normally go for the early stuff. So anyway, that's my number 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, let me just check here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's 12 albums. I'll tell a lie. No, 13. I am right. I need more coffee. So that comes in at number 13. Number 12 is the one called Grand Funk Lives. This was the reunion album from 1981. Mark Farner got back together with Don Brewer and Dennis Bellinger on bass. The original bassist was a guy called Mel Schacher, or Shasser, I'm not quite sure how you say his name. But he didn't take part in this reunion. He did take part in a later live album from 1997, live in Bosnia, which is really cool. So what's on here? Good Times, Queen Bee, which was a track used in the animated movie Heavy Metal, which came out in 81. Testify, Can't Be With You Tonight, No Reason Why. They do another cover, We Gotta Get Out of This Place. Actually not a bad version. Up-tempo, some nice guitar work from Mark Farner. YOU, Stuck in the Middle, Wait For Me. Yeah, it's not bad. Mark Farner, as I said, Don Brewer and Dennis Bellinger. Some good stuff on here, but yeah, not quite up to the standards of the early stuff. So that's number 12. Number 11, another bad album cover. I don't know what we're thinking here. Yes, Say No More. All the Girls in the World Beware. Cheesy title to go with the horrible cover. This album has its moments. There's a nice moody track on here called Good and Evil. It's kind of brooding, sort of slow build-up kind of track, which has got some really nice guitar work from Mark Farner. Underrated guitarist, I always thought. Great vocalist, but just as good on the guitar. So let's see if there's anything in I can show you. That was the original poster that came with the album that you could get. So there's that. And there's a shot of the guys live. At this stage, they had a guy by the name of Craig Frost on keyboards. I think he also did backing vocals. So it was Mark Farner, Mel Schacher, Don Brewer, and Craig Frost. They did a couple of albums with that lineup. Quite a few. So what else is on here? I mentioned Good and Evil, Responsibility, Running, Life, Look at Granny, Run Run, Memories, All the Girls in the World Beware, the title track, which is not bad. Quite a good rock song. Bad Time, and they do another cover, Some Kind of Wonderful, which I think was a hit off this album for them. There we go, All the Girls in the World Beware. Then we move on to yet another terrible album cover. This one was called Born to Die. Yeah, the cover just says it all. They're all lying in their coffins. And at this stage, this was around 1975, I think, the guys were starting to split and have issues. And I think Don Brewer was saying that Mark Farner was going too much into the gospel side of things, because that's in fact what he does today. He's released quite a few gospel albums. So there wasn't a lot of happiness in the band. So this would be their second last album before they did one in 76, which I'll go on to next. There's some good stuff on here. There's a really great instrumental track on here called Genevieve. They've done a few, or they did a few during their career. Some nice keyboard work from Craig Frost on here, with Moog synthesizers and Hammond organs and what have you. Also great guitar work. Politicians are good tracks with some great wah-wah guitar work from Mark Farner. Good Things, Born to Die, Dues, Sally, I Fell for Your Love, Talk to the People. Not a bad album, just the cover. I don't know what they were thinking. You actually kind of wonder in those days, how much say did the band have in album covers? Or was it just record companies taking over, which is sometimes the case. A lot of these are remastered. They were remastered. I think these came out in the early 2000s or late 90s. And they all have bonus tracks. Bare Naked Woman live, Genevieve, another version of that track. So yeah, that's quite cool to get these remasters. Then we move on to an album which was produced, believe it or not, by Mr. Frank Zappa, who actually became quite a good friend of the band. And he appears on one track here, an instrumental called Out to Get You, which is an incredibly rocking track with him doing some lead and Mark Farner doing other lead. And you can hear Frank Zappa's lead. He had a distinctive style on the guitar. That's my favorite track on here. Really cool number. What else is on here? Just Couldn't Wait, Can You Do It, Pass It Around, Don't Let Him Take Your Gun, which is quite a political song. I think also Mark Farner wrote that. He wrote a lot of the hits. Miss My Baby, Big Buns, which goes into Out to Get You, the instrumental. Crossfire, 1976, which is the year this album came out. Release Your Love, Going for the Pastor, and then there's a bonus track on here called Rubberneck, which is kind of a reggae tinge thing, which is quite sort of a fun track, you know, interesting lyrics. Produced by Frank Zappa. Good Singing, Good Playing, that was the name of the album. See the guys there. See if there's anything. There's another shot of them there. Yeah, so this was the last one to feature that lineup, which is quite sad. I thought this was a really strong album. A lot of guys don't like this, but I think the production's good on here. Frank Zappa, it would be. It's well worth one checking out. So now we come to let's have a look here, number 8, Shining On. This was the second album in their sort of commercial direction. Not a bad album. The original vinyl cover came with, these came out, you could take them off, and they were sort of 3D things that you stuck on your face, which is one of the selling points back in the day. And then you looked at the cover and you could see everything in 3D, or certain things in 3D, which was quite cool. A couple of overseas poster photographs. See if there's anything else I can show you. Oh, there's a shot of the guys. So this was still Don Brewer, Mark Farner, Mel Shasser and Craig Frost. I think there were a few covers on here as well. Let's see if I can get to the songs. It's great when these things don't have the song titles. Shining On, the title track, that's a cool track. That was a big live staple for them at the time. To Get Back In, The Locomotion, another cover. See, later on they did a lot more covers. Carry Me Through, Please Me, Mr. Pretty Boy, Getting Over You, Little Johnny Hooker, and then the bonus tracks, Destitute and Losing, and another remix of Shining On, the title track. Some great guitar work on here from Mark Farner, who's on harmonica and organ as well. He also played keyboards right in the early days before Craig Frost. Not a bad album to check out, Shining On. A lot of this would be featured on the live album Caught in the Act, which I think came out in 75 or 76. Right, we move on to number 7, We're an American Band. This album was massive for the guys. They'd had a big fallout with their producer, Terry Knight. He was no longer with the band. And they wanted to go on their own, and they did a pretty good job with this album. Great production by Todd Rundgren. He did this one, and I think the Shining On as well. Really good job. And this was a big album for them. There's a live shot. There's the guys in all their natural state amongst the flags, and there's a live shot of them. This band was amazing live. Studio work was cool, but you had to go see them live because they put on a really energetic, amazing show, especially Don Brewer on drums. He was incredible. So the tracks on here, We're an American Band, the title track, which was a huge hit for them. This album came out in 73, by the way. Stop Looking Back, Creeping, Black Licorice, another cool song with Don Brewer on vocals. He did quite a bit of vocals as well in the band. The Railroad, Ain't Got Nobody, Walk Like a Man, Loneliest Rider, and then there's bonus tracks, Hooray, The End, Stop Looking Back, an acoustic mix. This was a big one for them, and they did some massive tours on the back of this album. I don't think they were ever really that big in Europe or in the UK, but they were massive in America. Up until about 75 when they started to dip. So yeah, We're an American Band. One of the more requested songs of Grand Funk back in the day, in the 70s. My number 6 is the debut, On Time. Another very strange album cover. Might have been the fact that they didn't have much of a budget starting out. This is a really raw album, and you can see the rest of the early stuff was just the three of them. And yeah, I loved it. It was just in your face, power, rock power trio stuff. Some great traction here. Are You Ready? Up tempo, straight out of the gate, in your face rocker. Upfront bass. That's what I loved about the early stuff. The Mel Shacher's bass, so loud in the mix, which is great. Anybody's Answer, Time Machine, another cool song off here. I think that was a hit off here. High on a Horse. TNUC, the drum solo from Don Brewer. Yeah, you can read that backwards. It says something else. Into the Sun, a really long track with a few pieces in it. Heartbreaker, another hit off the album. Call Yourself a Man, Can't Be Too Long, Ups and Downs. Original version of High on a Horse and another version of Heartbreaker on the remastered. A great debut album, I thought. They would improve on this, but I thought as far as debuts go, this was pretty sharp. There's another shot of the guys in all their glory. It's quite interesting, some of the liner notes in here of how they started out, especially with Terry Knight, the manager, who they go on to have numerous issues with. Right, number 5, Survival. Them in the Cave. Now they had some interesting covers. Another sort of rawish album, Country Road, which has got some really tight snare drum work here from Don Brewer. All You've Got Is Money, Comfort Me, Feeling Alright, a cover. I think that was a Traffic song originally. I Want Freedom, I Can Feel Him in the Morning, which was kind of a ballady, sort of almost gospel-tinged song. And Gimme Shelter, another cover of the Rolling Stones song. And I thought they did a really great version of that. Very different to the Stones. There's a great version of theirs on the live album Caught in the Act as well. And there's about 4 or 5 bonus tracks on here as well. Excuse me, so I have a drink of water. Let's see if there's anything I can show you on the inside. Always interesting to see what... not really much here. There's a shot of the guys there. Japanese promotion. They were very big in Japan, as were a lot of the bands in the 70s from the States. Japanese love their rock music, still to this day. Okay, we move on to number 4. And this was an album which had a really interesting cover. This came out in 1971, and it was called E Pluribus Funk, with the American shot of American money on the front there. So this album had some classics on it. The drum work on here and the bass work is just phenomenal. Foot stomping music, which became a massive hit for the band. People, Let's Stop the War. Obviously they're talking about Vietnam. They were very anti-war, Grand Funk, in the early days. Upsetter, I Come Tumbling, which has got some incredible drum work, as I said, from Don Brewer. Lovely triplets and bass work. Save the Land, another sort of political song. No Lies and Loneliness. There's also a live medley on here. I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, Hooked on Love, Get It Together, and Mark Says All Right, which was from the live album. Excellent album. If you can get this, it's well worth it. There's a shot of the guys there. They were firing on all cylinders in the early days, and they were very prolific, like 1 or 2 albums a year, or soon after, one after the other. Here we go. So that's E Pluribus Funk, and that's my number 4 pick. My number 3 pick is the album I first mentioned, Phoenix. This is the one I found when I was about 13 or 14, and this cover just said something to me, and I thought, no, I've got to have that. I've got to see what this is all about. Every track on here for me is gold, and I know all the words to this. I've heard this 1,000 times. In fact, I still have the vinyl after all these years. It's still in pretty good nick as well. This was the first album to feature Craig Frost on keyboards. He wasn't, I don't think, a fully fledged member of the band yet. He was sort of as a guest, but he would become a member of the band. So what's on here? Flight of the Phoenix, an instrumental to kick off with a great organ work from both Mark Farner and Craig Frost. Trying to Get Away, Someone, She Got to Move Me, which has got a sort of a strange beat to it, sort of stop-start, which is really cool. Rain Keeps Falling, I Just Gotta Know, So You Won't Have to Die, which is a song about overpopulation. Freedom Is for Children, Gotta Find Me a Better Day, and Rock and Roll Soul, which was the big hit off this album. I love this album. It's just obviously got a lot of history with me. It means a lot to me. Um, and I thought they did pretty well. It's the first one to be produced by the band, produced by Grand Funk. Also features a guy called Doug Kershaw on electric fiddle on the first instrumental track. You can hear him on there. And there they are. Guys in all their 70s glory. Excellent album. Still enjoy that one to this day. My number 2 was a huge hit for them in the early days. I think when they were touring this album was when they sold out Shea Stadium so quickly. Closer to Home is the name of the album. And that track became a big hit with the guys in Vietnam, obviously thinking about home and wanting to get back and what have you. This album is exceptional. The bass on here is so raw and in your face, and that's what I love about the early stuff, and the drumming as well. Don Brewer is probably one of the best rock drummers ever in rock, and he doesn't get enough credit, I think. You know, everybody talks about the Bonhams and the Keith Moons and what have you, but Don Brewer was a pretty sharp drummer. Sin's a Good Man's Brother, Aimless Lady, great track. Nothing Is the Same, Mean Mistreater, which is a song about drugs. Very anti-drugs, Grand Funk, funnily enough. You wouldn't think so, being a 70s band, early 70s. And that was a song all about that. Get It Together, I Don't Have to Sing the Blues. Hooked on Love, with some great backing vocals from a couple of ladies. And I'm Your Captain, which was the big hit, Closer to Home. There were a couple of unreleased bonus tracks on here. In Need, Heartbreaker, and Mean Mistreater Live. All these tracks have been 24-bit digitally remastered, and they did a really good job with these remasters. I think this is EMI. See if I can show you anything inside. And there's an early shot of the guys live, which, as I said, is how you had to see Grand Funk. And they were selling out stadiums, massive stadiums around this time. Critics hated them, but hey, crowd said, we love it, we'll be there. So we get to my number 1 album of Grand Funk Railroad in the rankings, and sometimes called the Red Album, simply titled Grand Funk. Brilliant album. I often play this. It's just so loud and raw and of the time, I think. That whole power trio thing, which was Hendrix was doing, Cream was doing, Cactus was doing, a whole bunch of bands, Mountain, and they were around at the same time. Got this thing on the move, great kick-off track. Please Don't Worry, Highfalutin Woman with some great snare work from Don Brewer. Mr. Limousine Driver, In Need, which has got some great guitar work. Winter and My Soul, Paranoid, not the Sabbath version, not the Sabbath song, their own song called Paranoid with great wah-wah again from Mark Farner. Also some nice harmonica work on here as well. He was very good on the harmonica. And a cover of the Animals, I think it was the Animals song, Inside Looking Out. A long song, and that became a staple of the band. Great track with about 3 or 4 different parts to it. And really, they did if you listen to the original and you listen to their version of Inside Looking Out, it's way better. Great harmonica from Mark Farner. One of my favorite tracks of theirs. Live, they did that every time they had to play. It became a staple. There's a demo of Nothing Is the Same and an extended version of Mr. Limousine Driver. Brilliant album. So we'll see if there's anything inside. A whole bunch of Japanese promotional stuff. As I said, very big in Japan. And there they are. In the original vinyl, you opened it up and this photograph was in the middle. Which is kind of what I miss about it. Having vinyl. I have still got all of these on vinyl, actually. Not all of them. I think some I've replaced with CDs when they remastered these. But some nice album covers for vinyl. So there we go. Grand Funk Railroad, or just Grand Funk. One of my favorite bands of all time. A lot of the rock purists say, oh, they were very basic and there was, nothing special about them. But they spoke to me, and they spoke to a lot of other folk, and yeah, in their prime, few bands could touch them live. In fact, many bands didn't want to follow them on stage after they'd been on. Into the later 70s and then into the 80s, it was a bit more commercial. The two albums in the 80s were ill-timed, they just didn't work. As I said, they're still going today. I think Bruce Kulick from Kiss is actually the guitarist in the band. Mark Farner went on to a gospel career. He's had quite a few fallouts with Don Brewer and Mal Shasser about royalties and money and what have you, which is always the case. I'm hoping that one day they can mend fences and get back together and just do one more album for the guys who really followed them, like myself, for all those years. So there we go. I just want to, for those who celebrate, wish everybody a peaceful and safe Christmas, guys. Please take care out there. It's pretty crazy out there at the moment. So yeah, just take it easy. And if all else fails, just put on some rock and roll. That'll put a smile on your face. It always works for me. And I'll see you guys again soon. Have a good week. Take it easy. Cheers.